Hi everyone and welcome to this tutorial about MoCode, an all-new extension for After Effects. MoCode is a code editor that lets you write expressions and scripts with a lot of features, such as auto-completion, a project explorer, a user library, and a lot of other tools. In this tutorial, we'll not learn how to write expressions or scripts, but it will be a complete presentation of MoCode and how to use it to save a lot of time. A free trial of MoCode is available at ascripts.com, so don't hesitate to test it. To create our first expression, we'll just write a wiggle and apply it to the position property. So, just type a simple wiggle like that, and select the position property, and click on Apply. Then you can see that a new tab is open and your expression is targeted to this property. So if you change something here, it will be changed here too. You don't have to click on apply every time you change something. So if I make something big like that, we can see that we have our new expression here too. If you want to stop this behavior and manually apply your expression when you want to apply it, you can go in the tool group here and click on back to manual apply. Then, if you change something here, you have to click on apply or control enter, like that. If you make an error in your expression like this one, the expression will not be refreshed inside After Effects, but you can see an error right there. Every time you edit your expression, MoCode gets the value and display it right there. If you click on the value, you will see Timeline Explorer to study the evolution of your expression during a time. In this first situation, we have applied an expression to a property that hasn't got any expression. Now we would like to import an existing expression and modify it with MoCode. You just have to select your property and click on the Import Expression button or use Ctrl-I, like that. As you can see, it has opened a new tab. And if you modify there the value of the amplitude of your wiggle, it will be updated inside After Effects too. If I go back to my position and I change something on the expression, the same thing, it's updated on the good property. You can also make use this function with several compositions and switch quickly from one composition, from a property in a first composition to a property in a second composition very quickly thanks to the tab. Now we would like to apply the same wiggle on several properties. To do that, just select the properties where you want to apply the wiggle and click on Apply to Selected Properties. As you can see, all the selected properties have the wiggle expression. Now if you want to apply the expression of a position on several layers, you can just select all the layers that you want to affect, like that. Modify your position, like something like that. Select all the layers and click on Apply to Selected Layers. Then you can see that all the positions have wiggle 1000. This technique works only if you want to apply the expression to the same property of another layer. Because if I want to apply this wiggle on the rotation, I have to select the properties, click on Apply to Selected Properties, or I have to modify the rotation by clicking on the import expression button or use Ctrl+I. Modify the rotation, something like that, and click on Apply to selected layers. But I have to import the rotation before. Now, to make my wiggle more editable, I would like to create controllers and reference these controllers in my expression. I just create a controller called amplitude, another one called frequency. And in the traditional After Effects, to create a controller, you have to use this icon like that and select the property. In MoCode, things are a bit different. You have to select your property and open the contextual menu with the right click and click on Add Property Link, or use the shortcut, which is Ctrl+R. I use the shortcut for frequency, like that. You can also reference properties of another composition. If I create an amplitude controller called my far amplitude, I just select it right there and use Add Property Link. And as you can see, the syntax is different because my controller is in another composition. Like that. It's good to know that with MoCode, the syntax of your reference is directly universalized, because as you can see, if you use the traditional editor, it will create a link with the name of the property slider. But if you use German After Effects and that you send your project to a colleague in France, you will have problem because the French After Effects will not understand slider in German. So with MoCode we use the index when it's possible, or the match name. Now we will see that with MoCode you can directly create your controller thanks to Add Controller in the contextual menu. If I click on Add Controller, a new window is open, and I can define a name for my new controller. I call it my new amplitude. I can define where to select to create this controller. In this case, I want to create my controller on my targeted layer, which is a rectangle. I can define a tip for my controllers. There are several tips, different tips. And I can define a value for my controllers. For example, if I choose color, I have a color picker. If I choose 3D point, I have a 3D value. In this case, we will just select slider and type 100. Create, and as you can see, my link is updated here, and my controller is created here. For frequency, we will create our controller on a different layer in a different composition. I can use Add Controller or Ctrl+Alt+C. Give a name to this controller, my new frequency. And in this case, we will uncheck Add Controller on active layer, and click on the layer where we want to create our controller and click on Target. And you have the name of your composition and the name of the layer. If I want to create another layer, I just have to right-click on this button. And we just type 2 for the frequency, and the link is updated. As you can see, I have my new frequency on my new layer, and my expression is updated. In this chapter, we will see that we can create controllers quickly by coding. To create a controller, just type underscore, and then the autocompletion proposes you different syntax to create this controller. You have a checkbox, layer, angle, 3D point, slider, point, and color. All the controllers that are accessible in expression controls in your effect panel. If I type slider, 2 points, the name of my controller, my over amplitude, and then the index of the layer, which is 1 in this case, and another underscore, my controller is automatically created right there. Now I will create my controller on another layer. If I want to create the controller on the rectangle 4, I just have to create slider, my external controller, and 5, and is created on the rectangle 4, which have the index 5 right there. Finally, I can also use a last syntax, which is the 0. If you type 0, the controller will be created on your targeted layer. So in this case, it's a rectangle, which is this one. To use this syntax, you have to you need to import your property before, or to apply it a first time. If you want to know more about the controller creation with coding, you can use the graphic interface right there, which will propose you each time you want to create a controller. In this case, high frequency, add controller on active layer slider. It will propose you directly the syntax to use for the next time. If you use, for example, point, you will see point. If you want to create your controller on another layer, it will change the index. So it's a good way to learn the syntax. And if you click on Learn More About, it will open the Help section that is accessible from there in the Tools panel, and from there. It's a complete documentation with a lot of answers to your question, and there is a complete chapter about the MoCode syntax in Expression Editor. One of the cool things about MoCode is its ability to switch from expression mode to script mode in just a few clicks. You have to open the menu by clicking on the Open Menu button, or use Ctrl+B, and go to script mode right there. Then you can type alert hello world, and click on the execute button, or use Ctrl+Enter, and you can execute a script very quickly. If you work on complex projects, the Project Explorer can be useful to find quickly a property. You have to open the menu, and the Project Explorer is right there. Each composition is a folder in which one you have all the layers with at least one expression. If you click on the layer, it will display inside After Effects. And if you double click on a property, the property will be opened inside the editor. And after that, you can navigate from one property to another thanks to the tab navigator. The Project Explorer also lets you find the property you need thanks to a search bar. When you have to type the name of the composition or the beginning of the name, in this case another is sufficient. Comma, then you have to type the name of the layer. If you want to have the ellipse, we can just type that. And after that, the properties that you're looking for. In our case, position. and it will be present there. If I want to have all the properties of a rectangle, I can type tutorial rectangle 2, for example, and then the star, so that everything is displayed. Or if you just want rotation, rot, and that's all. You can also use the filter, the type filter. If you select, for example, simple value, it will only display rotation and opacity because the scale is a 2-dimension value, position and anchor point 2. There you have an alert because the filter on the search engine works better if your project is fully indexed. So you have to click on expand all, and if you haven't this alert, you are sure that every property is registered in the Project Explorer. Finally, if you use the star, it will show you all the layers available. If you use the star there, it will show you all the composition in the project, and it's a good way to find, for example, just the position of all layers in the project, right there, and to switch from one expression to another like that. Now we will explore one of the most interesting parts of MoCode, which is its user library. You can access to the user library by clicking here for the script and the expression. And if it's your first time on MoCode, you just will have these two folders. The default one, which is a local library, and the MoCode library, which is a remote library uploaded on GitHub and synced every time you restart MoCode. To create your first item in the library, just click on the More button and we'll create a wiggle. You can create a documentation, just a simple wiggle. Edit the title like that. Select the type of properties that can be where this expression can be applied. For wiggle, there is several types like this one, and just create your expression like that. You can add tags. For wiggle, we can create the tags random, and for the moment, that's all. If you want to apply this expression later, you can go to the user library, select wiggle, and select a property or several property, and click on apply. And the expression will be applied automatically to all the selected properties. You can also copy the expression to clipboard with this button. And you can edit your expression if you want to make some change. For example, you could want to enhance your documentation with Markdown. Markdown is a custom syntax to format your text quickly with just a few characters. For example, if you add stars like that, your text will be bolder. If you save it, you will have a well-presented documentation. Every item saved in your library can be transformed into snippets. To transform an expression into snippet, just edit it, and at the bottom of the page, you can switch on the snippet mode and give a name to your snippet. Like that. Save the modification in the library and go back to the editor. Then, if you type wiggle snippet, or just the beginning, and type enter, the snippet will be automatically imported in the editor. You can also save your expression directly from the editor without creating it from scratch in the library. If you right-click to open the contextual menu, you have the possibility to save expression to library right there. It will propose you different library. In our case, we have just one. By the way, we will rename it tutorial and create another library, my other library, like that. If I save it, I can now select the library where I want to save my expression. I will call it color, random color. And I just keep the documentation for this expression. We can see that in the tags, if we open the tag select, it will propose us all the tags previously created. In this case, I can add the random tag and color 2, like that. Now we will discover an advanced functionality of MoCode, which is called visual mode. In the default behavior of the library, when you apply an expression to a property, like the scale for a rectangle, you have to modify manually the parameters of your expression. For example, here it's the amplitude and the frequency. With visual mode, you can automate this modification. So we go back to our wiggle item. You have to use the MoCode syntax, the same one than the syntax for create the controllers. If you type slider amplitude, and you close without define an index, same thing here, frequency, you can see there that when you create a new controller, it is automatically detected, and you can visually see, check if your controller is well named here. You can save, and then you can use visual mode. If you click on that, each controller can have a different behavior. For example, you can say to visual mode to create the amplitude controller on the rectangle layer, and to set a static value for frequency. If I type 2, I click on scale, apply. My expression will be applied with an amplitude controlled by a slider amplitude, and frequency will be static. I can go back in visual mode and say to the visual mode to create all the controllers on the new layer. To do that, you can go to create a controller and uncheck create controller on target layer, select your new layer here, and click on target right there. And you can do that globally for all controllers by clicking here and click on target all to selected layer. And this way, all the controllers are targeted to the null. If you do that with ellipse, target all, the target is changing. We will do it on the new layer. You can change the name of your controller, my amplitude, my frequency. Select your property, all the properties you want. You can make that for scale and position, for example, and click on apply. And then, as you can see, you have two controllers, my amplitude and my frequency, on your new layer. And if you change it, all the properties are affected. When you go to visual mode, you have the possibility to modify each controller individually. But if you're not interested with that, you can directly click on apply. Select your properties before, click on apply, and the window will ask you for the global behavior for all controllers. So, for example, if you click on Replace with default values, apply, all variables will have default values of 0 because 0 is the default value for a slider. But if you choose to another option as create controllers on a new layer, MoCode will create a layer called MoCode controllers and put amplitude and frequency controllers on it, like that. If you want to know more about visual mode, you can go to the help section. You have some description about visual mode right there, and about the MoCode syntax in expression library and in script library. You can see that each parameter in After Effects is available in the visual mode, checkbox, slider, and even a text to create a text layer. You have the same thing for the script library, so that you don't have to create a graphical interface for your script. You can do it with a MoCode syntax. And you can also see the default expression available in MoCode, which are using the MoCode syntax. For example, this expression random color lets you randomize a color like that. You have to select your color, and in visual mode you have different parameters: main color, the seed, the random hue, saturation, luminosity. If you go there and you click on create controllers on a new layer, you can see that all controllers are created. You can select your main color and define a percent of random hue, saturation, and luminosity on the seed. That's just an example of what you can do with visual mode. All the functionalities available in the expression library are also available in the script library. So let's go to the script library. Here we have a simple script that creates a predefined number of text layers with the index of the layer as a text content. So if we have if n is equal to 10, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 until 10, until 9. And we would like to let the user choose the number of duplicated text. So we will use the visual mode. We could edit the script at each time, or use the script a prompt in script mode. But here we will use the visual mode. That is a bit different in script mode than in expression mode, because the name of the controller are not the same. It's not a slider or angle or controller like that, but it's color, string, number, bool. You can have the details in the help section at MoCode syntax, how to use MoCode syntax in script library. You have all the different type of controllers in script mode. So here we want a number who's called number of duplicates, like that, and we can save our scripts. Now let's go to open visual mode, and we can choose the number. Here we define 12, execute, and we have 12 layers randomly distributed in a 2D space. If we type, if we enter 5, as you can see, we have 5 layers. Now we will learn how to integrate an expression to add some complexity to this script. MoCode lets you create expressions separately from the script with the expression section. You have to click on create the first one. You define an ID. Here we just want to add a wiggle to the different created text layers. So we call this expression wiggle, and we'll add a simple wiggle 100, like that. Now we have to call the expression in the script. So you have to use a custom function of MoCode. Expression is equal to mocode.lib.getExpression. And you have to type the ID of the expression right there, wiggle. Then we'll apply this expression to the position like that. And you have to save it and relaunch the script. And here you can see that each layer has its expression wiggle. If you want to be able to modify the expression, that's the real interest of the scripting mode. You can add some replacement text, the text you want. Here I use underscore because it's just for the clarification of the code. Amplitude. Here you can ask to the user the parameters of the wiggle. var amp is equal number wiggle amplitude. Then frequency is equal to number wiggle frequency, like that. And in the second parameters of the MoCode method, you can add an array of search and replace. So you will ask to search amplitude string, like that, and replace with the amplitude defined by the user. And the same things for frequency, like that. You can save and test it with a visual mode. Wiggle amplitude 200 and frequency 12. And execute. And here you have your new expression wiggle 212. Obviously, for a very simple expression like wiggle, it's not really necessary to use this tool, but it's for example, you can have a case with expression of 10 lines or more, 100 of lines. And here it is very useful to have this section, this expression section, with the possibilities to create visual controllers in script mode. And you can create other expression like that with another ID. You can say it's for the opacity. On the opacity, you can say seed random, something like that. And random 0.50, and apply that to opacity right there. like that. And here we are. You have the good expression for opacity and the good expression for the position, like that. I highly recommend you to back up and export as soon as possible your library, because if you have a problem with your computer or anything else, everything will be lost. So to export it, go to More Tools, Import or Export Library. On Export, in the Export section, you can select just a few libraries or all the libraries at the same time. Click on Export. Name it MoCode lib, something like that. If you want to import it later on another computer, just go to Import Local, choose your export files. On here you can choose which library you want to import. Finally, you can import remote libraries, which are libraries like the MoCode one. When you go to an expression of the MoCode library, you can see there the cloud icon. It means that this library is uploaded to a web server on GitHub. As you can see on the denim GitHub, you have for now just one library, but later we'll add another library, so you will be able to download from there. You just take the URL of the library, which is something like that. You copy it, and on the import-export tool, you can add my remote lib, the web address, and import. On here you have my remote lib, which is exactly the same one that MoCode library, so you can delete it after. These libraries are read-only because you can't modify the content of the library on the web server, but each time you update your library on the server, if you relaunch MoCode, all the modifications will be automatically downloaded. If you're offline, MoCode will use the last version of this library on your local computer. Some additional tools can be found in the More Tools section, such as projects obfuscation, settings, the documentation. In future updates, you'll be able to make global search and replace on the entire project or just a few compositions. For now, we'll interest to Project Obfuscator. Project Obfuscator lets you minify all the expression in your project to protect your code when you want to share it with others. So for the first launch, I disabled deep obfuscation because you can use it without risk, but it can have performance issues on complex expression on a big project. So I recommend to use it only if the obfuscation is a real preoccupation. So let's go. When you minify a project with MoCode, all the code in the source project is still intact. The minification is just in a copy of the project. As you can see, if we import a property, you can observe that all the code, that all the spaces are removed, all the break line, all the variables are as short as possible. But your code still readable and understand it, it's completely possible. So if you really want deep obfuscation, you can switch on this option relaunch the obfuscation. I just open the source project, relaunch the deep obfuscation, deep, and we will see that the expression are impossible to understand after that, like that. So here the expressions are much more protected than a simple minification. But I advise you to test your project to check if the performance are not too low after that. Thanks for watching. Don't hesitate to leave us your opinion about MoCode. And if you have any suggestions of functionalities, don't hesitate to post it here.